So I wasn't sure when I was asked to give this presentation, because I've been involved in it from near the beginning. In 2004, we started these, 2003, 2004, we started these stakeholders meetings. And Mark Del Monte has reminded me many times since, we went from a stakeholders meeting to signed legislation in about 3 years. And I was really proud to be a part of the group that helped put together this legislation. And so we have the Pediatric Medical Device Safety and Improvement Act of 2007. And as part of that, they authorized these demonstration grants for improving pediatric device availability and these nonprofit consortia. So after Al Wicks and I had participated in that part of all this, when the RFA came out for consortia, we kind of looked at each other and said, well, maybe Andy and Al ought to put together a consortium. So our model, established in 2009, was to be an independent 501c3 nonprofit. We have contracted a little bit. We have 6 children's hospitals plus 1 institute at this point. And we really set ourselves up to work as a coordinating center for medical device development and clinical trials. We have established a relationship with the Pediatric Trials Network that is run out of one of our consortium hospitals at Duke. And we really see ourselves more as an information source for the medical community, manufacturers, parents, patients. We've promoted the concept that each hospital in the consortium serves as its own hub and leverages the medical leadership, technology communities, investment communities, inventors in that area. And we really, I know it was mentioned earlier today, we really do believe that the key to success in developing pediatric devices is working with small businesses. We've held educational conferences and to promote the development of devices. The first, after going through all this, we weren't successful the first time around. We applied and we failed. But we were fortunate to receive an administrative supplement from the FDA through the University of Michigan MIC, Medical Innovation Center, and their MPED subsidiary. And then the last 2 years, I've been the co-PI with Jim Geiger from the University of Michigan, and that's been a very good relationship. So our mission at PMDI is take needs and get tools to the bedside. From day one, we have promoted the total product life cycle and really believe that all these cross connections really do help facilitate and accelerate development of devices. I wanted to just show you, this is the ecosystem that really falls around my own children's hospital. Just in terms of, we're in the middle, but we have corporations we work with, parents, patients, the Pediatric Trials Network, and then with each consortium hospital, they have their own medical leadership, technology community, entrepreneurs and investors. And then around us, just in our little part of Southwest Virginia and with our relationships with other companies around the United States, there are a bunch of small businesses that we have collaborated with over the last few years. Currently, we're basically based and organized around Virginia and North Carolina. We have a nice mix of kind of public and private institutions. Some are freestanding children's hospitals. Others, like mine, are kind of hidden inside the big house at Roanoke Memorial Hospital. We're very rural where I am. I work out of a city of less than 100,000 people, but my catchment population is over 1 million. And so all of us have different strengths, from excellence in clinical care to really top-notch basic science research. But as a whole, we're serving about 2 million children. So in my local hub, our medical leadership come out of the Carilion Clinic, the Virginia Tech Carilion School of Medicine. We're one of the youngest schools in the country. We haven't graduated a class yet. Our fourth years start next month. We have a College of Health Sciences where they train respiratory therapists, nurses, physical therapists, EMS folks, things like that. We have a great association with the Virginia, Maryland Regional College of Veterinary Medicine, the Children's Institute for Pediatric Trauma, which is based in Winston-Salem and associated with Wake Forest. And then out in the technology community, land-grant university with a big engineering school, and then the graduate school shared with Wake Forest, community colleges, high school programs, the corporations. I listed just a few of our local entrepreneurs. John Davis, he's a pediatric dentist. And he does procedures in the operating room under anesthesia. And he tells you, I just stood there year after year watching the anesthesiologist struggle to get a nasotracheal tube in. And it occurred to me one day, maybe I could come up with a solution to help with that. And he has created a device called RhinoGuard. It just simply you slip the endotracheal tube on it. It has a blunt, slick, tapered end. And in benchtop testing, you can get the tube into the trachea in about 17 seconds on average, as opposed to struggling getting past turbinates and adenoids and all kinds of stuff in between. And so we've worked with him. I helped him find a manufacturer through our contacts. We just sat down last week. FDA asked him for some additional testing related to how it compares to just placing an endotracheal tube through the nose, and so we're going to do some testing on his tubes at Virginia Tech and engineering. Sam English, entrepreneur, licensed some intellectual property out of the University of Virginia for diagnosing ADHD using changes in EEG. And so he needed access to clinicians. And so we get him in front of the developmental pediatricians and the general pediatricians in the community, and he's developing a product. Al Durham's an orthopedic surgeon, came to us many years ago. Before I got into the pediatric business, I was doing other things, and we've worked with Al over the years to develop a device for placing intramedullary nails for orthopedic trauma. We've worked with local colleges in helping small businesses build business plans. So I'm going to just stop here talking about the barriers that we've seen to device development that, when I've given talks in rooms like this, and, the question is, how many of you surgeons, physicians in your daily practice have come up with what you think is an innovation or improvement, a device or a process to improve the care of your patients? Everybody raises their hand, okay? And then I say, well, how many of you have done something about it? And in this room, it's kind of a, not fair to ask that question, but in most general audiences, one or two guys will raise their hand, and they'll say, well, how come the rest of you haven't done anything? Well, I don't understand intellectual property. I talked to the sales rep from such and such a company, and he said he'd get back to me, but they never really came back to me about my interest. How do I get a prototype made? And then on the other side, engineers come and they say, I have this great idea, but I can't get in to talk to anybody in the hospital. How do I get into the system? I don't understand clinical trials and the FDA and things like that. And, and the doctors will say, I need a designer and I need an engineer to work with me. And then, of course, there's always money. And then what if I build it? Will they buy it? So I just throw those out there for consideration and part of the discussion. Thanks.